Greetings, folks. My name is Roleplaying, and this is Quick and Dirty Role-Playing. So, the topic I want to talk about is on this thing about OneD&D and how Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro wants to monetize it more. This is going to be like a quasi-scripted video, so expect me to not speak in a professional manner. I just have things largely as bullet points. So as of this date, Wizards of the Coast is currently working on a new edition of D&D. The code name for it is OneD&D. Wizards has also acquired D&D Beyond, and they want to launch a very elaborate virtual tabletop for it. In a sense, it'll probably be something that can be akin to, geez, what's this thing called on Steam, Virtual Tabletop Emulator or something like that. It'll be something like that, but specifically tailored for OneD&D, whatever that edition is. So in, I guess, other articles that you can find out there, the CEO of Wizards of the Coast has stated that D&D is undermonetized, despite D&D itself being more profitable than ever. And the four pillars that they talk about regarding increasing monetization is the books themselves in the game, the tabletop RPG of D&D, D&D branded paraphernalia, such as not the shirt that I'm wearing, because I don't know, I just find that cringe, oh, I'm a Dungeons and Dragons person. Video games and movies, which have all been freaking terrible. Regarding the tabletop RPG content, apparently DMs, Dungeon Masters, buy 80% of the content, even though they're only 20% of the player base. Because being a DM for D&D is a massive pain in the ass. Let's see. So the thing to keep in mind is that Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, they're a capitalist corporation, and so their main objective is to make more money than they had before. Everything they do must have that agenda as its motivation, and anything that doesn't undermines Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Quality product is, at best, a circumstantial side effect and not the main agenda. So profitable models that WotC / Hasbro can get inspiration from or downright copy can include, in my opinion, Fortnite and Diablo Immortal. The vector in which they can inject these microtransaction schemes most likely will be with the virtual tabletop that D&D Beyond is going to, I guess, host. The rule books, whether physical or digital, they could be a funnel for players and DMs to get them to use D&D Beyond's virtual tabletop. Kind of like if, say for example, I'll just use a personal friggin' example, okay? Back in the early to mid 2000s, I discovered this pickup artist book called Double Your Dating. I bought the ebook, and then that served as a funnel for their DVD seminar series and whatnot, which then served as a funnel for actually going to these things in person. I never did that, but that's how it works. You put out the educational material that then leads you to the thing that costs more money, that then leads you to the thing that costs even more money. It happened. You know, I'm not proud of it, but whatever. If they're brazen enough, the rulebooks themselves may even require the use of the virtual tabletop by chopping up the content and porting it over into the virtual tabletop. Much like how Warhammer 3rd Edition kind of chopped up content with all like the doodads that made it seem like a board game instead of a tabletop role-playing game. So specifically, with Warhammer 3rd Edition, even though like the main rules were like in the booklets and whatnot, specific things like character traits and whatnot, they were in cards, and there were also like tokens and markers for stuff. But then later on, they came up with like the same material, but just in a book, in case you didn't want to use all the paraphernalia that came along with the original Warhammer 3rd Edition box set, which cost $120. So this in turn will mask the actual price of playing D&D beyond, not the brand name D&D Beyond, but actually beyond buying the rulebooks. Supplements can also include these codes to put into your D&D Beyond account, so that you can unlock the supplement rules to incorporate in your virtual tabletop. These are all, again, you know, this is all speculations on my part, but it's honestly not out of the realm of possibility. Now, more likely, what they'll probably do with D&D Beyond, like the virtual tabletop, is nickel and dime users with cosmetics that they can purchase for character models, like personalization and gear, or specialized terrain features that fall under like a certain theme, a promotion, or a campaign setting. And this is why I said that, you know, they can take inspiration from Fortnite, because that's where like the money goes. You know, if you just use like a basic generic character model, you know, apparently like kids are like teased for doing that instead of like buying V-Bucks and then getting like a specific skin, or just getting like any skin. So the bad news about all of this, first, you know, a major portion of the D&D player base suckle at the teat of Wizards of the Coast when it comes to how to play D&D and what rules are valid. I touched this point on my video called From D&D Consumers to RPG Creatives. Now, one of the biggest legitimate reasons for this possibility, or for this, is the possibility of isolating themselves from players isolating themselves from their gaming group of fellow D&D consumers. When people are comfortable and largely locked in with their game of choice, it's very, very difficult to get them to try anything new, let alone switch. It's like the people who only play World of Warcraft for MMORPGs. Also, another point, D&D is seen as the beating heart of the tabletop role-playing game hobby. Now, while it's always been the leading brand name of tabletop RPGs since its inception, D&D is not the beating heart. If you remove D&D from existence, the hobby will live on and most likely be a whole lot more diverse, especially in like what games players play. If anything, D&D is acting more like a tumor on the hobby, not only because of how much market share it takes from other games, but because of how it shapes hobbyists' thinking on how to play tabletop role-playing games due to how big it is. You know, if all they see is D&D, then that's all they're going to know. The D&D brand mainly serves to bolster D&D, not the tabletop RPG hobby as a whole, to the point where if you only play D&D, you'll probably be confused when asked, do you play tabletop RPGs? Again, I touch on this point in my previous video from D&D consumers to RPG creatives. The last big point I want to bring from the bad news part is that D&D related YouTube channel content creators, especially the ones that make money off of those channels, are financially incentivized to keep up with the way D&D changes, whether they like it or not. To do otherwise would jeopardize their income. This means that it will be in their financial interest to convince their channel subscribers and patrons to follow suit and stay current with D&D, regardless of its former content. Now, the solution, and again, this is my opinion, be an advocate for the following, and this goes from the least amount of effort to the most. First, play D&D your own way, or your own edition, not Wizards of the Coast's way. Then, the next step, play D&D's closest competitor, which is Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you want to go even further than that, play and promote tabletop RPGs that emulate D&D's past edition, which are found in the Old School Renaissance or OSR movement. And, if you want to go the most out of the way, advocate for other tabletop RPGs that are not D&D. And this is my personal choice and stance. So advocating for other tabletop RPGs or D&D house rules brings awareness to the fact that Wizards of the Coast and their official products are not the law on how to play tabletop role-playing games at your table. The DM is, or the GM is, GM being a game master. The rules lawyer at your table does not have the ultimate authority on what is or is not valid at your game table. The DM is. If you're a rules lawyer and the DM is not going by the rules, ask them what house rules they're using and incorporate them rather than telling the DM, that's not what the book says. The DM is running the game, not the book. Remind people that D&D is good at doing D&D, not necessarily at doing everything else in tabletop role-playing games. Specifically, D&D is, in large part, a skirmish game with exploration as a secondary element and role-playing as a tertiary element, because this is the distribution of where the focus is on the rules as written, which are primarily around combat. While other TTRPGs may have similar rules distributions towards combat, exploration, and role-playing, many don't. Even then, they all do it differently than D&D. Exposure to other tabletop role-playing games does wonders to the imagination of what is possible in the hobby, not only for different settings, but for different game systems and mechanics. If not for the fact that D&D is the most played tabletop RPG in the world, many will find it really hard to just go back to playing D&D when exposed, or when they expose themselves to other games that are out there. And that's really all I have to say about this subject for now. Take care, folks, and play to find out what happens.